Happy Thanksgiving, Leigh.
Happy Thanksgiving in September.
Although we probably will be closer to Thanksgiving when this episode comes out.
Oh, that's true. That's very true. Probably hello, October. Hello, happy Halloween, everybody.
Spooky season is upon us.
Spooky.
Welcome back to Queer Gals Watch The West Wing with myself, Fia, and the lovely Leigh Douglas.
It's gorgeous to be here. It's a pleasure. Please, can we escape 2025?
Yeah, shall we? I just would love to just leave and never come back.
Yeah, great. Let's go back to 2001 and talk about the Indians in the lobby.
Yes. Episode 7, Season 3, The Indians in the Lobby, and our Thanksgiving episode for this season.
Yeah, which just to kind of, I think, as an opening caveat,
yeah, let's.
We don't feel great about the title of this episode. Sure, it's kind of quippy in a kind of Sorkin-esque way, but it feels a little disrespectful to me, kind of setting up the presence of American Indians or Indigenous people in the lobby of the West Wing as the kind of opening line to a joke. Doesn't feel great to me. I'd also love for us to be more specific about the particular tribal nation that these individuals are from, which we are eventually, but not early enough.
Yes, and Leigh and I won't go into it in the episode recap because we didn't really find it funny, but the reference to the Indians in the lobby, everyone in the West Wing assuming that someone was starting a joke when they were talking about it, to us, we felt a little outdated.
Yeah, it didn't feel great. But with that caveat, let's dive into another episode of The West Wing.
Yeah, let's. Because I do love a Thanksgiving episode. And this is delivering on all fronts. I mean, the level of tomfoolery in this episode, Leigh, is off the charts.
And I do have to confide, Fiona, I've not told you this yet in our personal exchanges, but myself and Lizzie, we're really feeling our Americanness at the moment, and we have invested in a subscription to watch the NFL this season.
Oh, lovely.
So I'm feeling very kind of autumnal America because I watched my first game of the season over the weekend. So that feels, Friday night football is upon me in the biggest way.
Because he's the coach.
For anyone who's curious, my girlfriend supports the Philadelphia Eagles because she was born in Philadelphia. And I obviously support the Seahawks.
Yes. Yeah. Leigh and I both have some lovely Seahawks merch.
I was about to say, as do you, Fiona.
Yeah. And actually, I have not American football, but baseball. I have a lovely vintage Mariners baseball cap.
You do?
Which was a gift from Leigh's mum, which was an amazing thrift find because Leigh's mum just finds great thrift shop stuff. She's just got a skill. But I wear it all the time, and pretty much every time I wear it, someone's like, the Mariners aren't good. And I'm like, I know. It's a thing. It's a thing. My best friend's from there. Just let me have this. I don't want to talk to you about baseball. It's boring. It's just rounders.
Yeah.
But on a bigger scale.
Will we to the Oval with CJ and Jed?
Yeah. Yes. The previously on for this episode, just to mention, is like tight in on the Bartlets, both in their marriage and the kind of impending depositions. And also another reference to Buckland, meaning his impact maybe isn't over quite yet. But I'm not sure if we actually get into that in the episode. Anywho, we open in the Oval with CJ, Jed, and CJ's legs.
It's just a tracking shot up CJ's legs. There's also a red lip. It's a wow.
So what seems to have happened is that the Bartlets are going to Camp David for Thanksgiving rather than going to New Hampshire. Jed is deeply unimpressed and unhappy about this. And then he's like, why? He's sort of discussing the fact that like he owns a farm and he would rather be on a farm. And CJ's like, well, Camp David's kind of like a farm. And he's like, what makes you feel like it's a farm? And she's like, I don't know. It's outside. Which feels very much about like, it feels a good parallel to mine and yours friendship, Leigh, and how like I've kind of taught you about the land.
It does feel like a conversation that me and your father might have.
And I do feel like Jed's kind of like exiting quip to CJ being like, I want you to learn more about farms. may have been something I've said to you in the past.
Yeah. Certainly, if you haven't, your dad has.
Yes, yes. So Abby doesn't want to go to New Hampshire for Thanksgiving.
She doesn't like
Trouble in
schlepping.
paradise. Specifically, she doesn't like to schlep there. CJ's lost it. Leigh, how long do you think CJ has been in the Oval Office with Jed?
I'm going to say at least 90 minutes.
Yeah, we're over an hour for
Yeah.
sure. Would you like to give kind of CJ's thought processing?
So Jed kind of turns to her and says, were we talking about something? And she says, I don't know, sir. When I came in here back in the late 50s, there was a purpose to it. But then one thing led to another and I blacked out. I mean, I can hang in there with the best of them, sir. But somewhere in the discussion of anise, coriander, and the other 15 spices you like to use to baste a turkey, I simply lost consciousness.
It's phenomenal. And then when she does finally escape, as she's leaving, Jed shouts after her, it's the brine that keeps the meat soft, lady. You soak it overnight in water, salt, sugar, and 17 kinds of spices.
Yeah. It's pure Bartlet and CJ gold, of the kind that I don't feel we've seen since they had their little quippy exchange walking down the steps of Air Force One.
Yes, yes. And he made her wear the cap.
Yeah, but it feels like they're back on solid ground as a duo.
And like her being like, I want to quit, and him being like, well, you're not going to. We've kind of moved on from there.
Yeah.
Which is nice. But let's go to the lobby and meet Jack and Maggie, who are the two, in quotation marks, Indians in the lobby that we find out about. And CJ is kind of given this story by Josh. CJ is like, I've wrapped up all of my work. I'm ready to take my Thanksgiving break. I've kind of like filed everything away. And then classically, Josh is like, oh, this is now your problem.
Yeah.
But the two people in the lobby are Maggie Morningstar Charles and Jack Lone Feather. And they had a meeting. I can't remember the department with which they had the meeting with, but the meeting was cancelled, but only once they'd already got there.
The Department of the Interior is the department they had the meeting with.
And so they've decided that they don't want to leave until they've seen someone. And oh, can we all empathize with this energy?
Oh, 100%. Now, you'd better believe when a Thames Water engineer comes to my house tomorrow, they will not be leaving until the leak has been identified.
Yeah.
You'd better believe it. So I identify
paperwork
strongly. Yeah. And we will be chatting more about the Department of the Interior in our study session later.
Excellent. So I believe this is kind of going to be CJ's story that's like keeping her in the West Wing. And what I was hoping at this point in the episode is that it doesn't become like a kind of funny, the turkeys storyline.
Agreed.
Because I really didn't want us to be like assholes in a Thanksgiving episode.
In a Thanksgiving episode, especially, given that the day before Thanksgiving, which I imagine this is the day before Thanksgiving, if it's the day everyone's traveling, is the official Native American day of mourning.
Yeah. So the other big storyline in this episode is that a 13-year-old kid in Georgia shot his teacher in the back of the head at school and is now missing and on the run.
A very interesting gun violence storyline.
Yes. So Josh and Leo are discussing this because the young man has been found in Italy and is being held by Italian police. But basically, they're trying to extradite him back to America. And so that's kind of the difficult push and pull. In Leah's words, it's taken on an international flavor.
Much like myself, is the responding quip from Joshua Lyman. To which I say, Josh, you are dreaming. You are the most American man there's ever been. I
imagine if he went on holiday, like did a European trip, that he would just be like, going to all of the tourist hotspots and then like complaining that it's not good.
Yeah, dare I say, when I was in Italy a couple of weeks ago, I did find that with the greatest, obviously, peace and love to my adopted nation, in a kind of small, historic, walled Italian town, the jarring feeling of hearing a booming male American voice from kind of almost across the town.
Yeah, it's the level of projection.
And I fear that is Josh Lyman on an international vacation.
Yeah. Yeah, nailed it. The information about Italy, though, is that the boy's parents actually sent him to Italy. But he has been picked up by Interpol. I have hope for this story kind of having some longevity. I think it's very interesting. The other big news in this episode is that the OMB has created a new poverty formula. And this is something that's kind of Sam and Toby's storyline. And that means that due to this new classing of poverty, there's actually going to be 4 million new, in quotation mark, people living in poverty, which is obviously terrible optics for the Bartlet administration because it can be really used by the opposition, but kind of in a way much better for those who have this new classing because actually it means they'll get more access to support and benefits. So it's like, good job from the OMB, but tough spin for our boys.
Yeah.
I also like that the whole of this kind of story unfolds whilst Toby is just trying to have a nice moment alone.
He's just trying to read his newspaper and he's got like a Starbucks in front of him, which feels like a treat coffee. It feels like you've actually left the West Wing to go and purchase that coffee.
Yeah.
So it feels like it's a treat coffee. And he was really expecting to kind of really sit and have a moment with his newspaper in this coffee. And I'm upset for him that his treat was ruined.
Yes. Poor Toby, especially just before he's about to go on holiday as well.
Yes, we need to discuss about the family that Toby is supposed to be going to see later.
Yes. But back to the lobby. So I found this storyline really interesting because in history class in the UK, we don't really learn any American history. Like famously, until I watched Hamilton, I wasn't aware that the king kind of ruled over America and then we got kicked out. Literally didn't know that.
So crazy.
Yeah. And like, I liked school.
You loved school, especially history.
I love to learn.
She loves a library.
I love to be in a library, just reading some books. They just didn't want to talk about it. So I didn't know anything about the Dawes Act or any of the like subsequent acts that followed that this storyline that CJ has with Jack and Maggie talk about. So I found it really interesting. And what I was like, oh, the meeting with the Department of the Interior was about some reparations, we feel.
It was about land allocation for their particular nation, which is an ongoing discussion point with the Department of the Interior, because underneath the Department of the Interior, you have the Office of Indian Affairs.
Right. Okay.
So the Department of the Interior is the overriding institution that manages all of the treaties between the United States and Native American tribes.
Okay.
Yeah.
I just think it's a really interesting and like very thoughtful story to be discussing in a Thanksgiving episode.
Yes. And we didn't really touch on it in last year's Thanksgiving episode. So
no, last year's was the turkeys, right?
It was.
Yeah.
And it felt very kind of, it was also the story of the modern day pilgrims.
Yes.
Arriving in America.
Yes. But should we discuss another HR nightmare from Joshua Lyman?
Please.
So we're assuming it's the day before Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
Josh is due to spend Thanksgiving with his mother and he has made no plans or booked any flights. And now it's all Donna's problem. And so she's like ringing up airlines to try and find him a ticket.
Because he forgot the state in which his mother lives.
And he's like, well, like, spiritually, I'm from Connecticut. And it's like, well, your mum lives in Florida.
Quite far away.
Yeah. And I do enjoy that Donna was like, I'm telling your mother you forgot where she lives.
You were the girl I made fun of in elementary school. You know that? Wild.
Yeah. I'm not a fan of that.
No.
What I do like is the fact that it confirms our suspicions that Donna and Josh's mum got close when Josh was being treated in hospital and was kind of like recuperating at home. So I do enjoy that. And it does feel like the awkwardness of last week's episode has dissipated.
It does feel it's dissipated, yes. Because I think Josh needs something from Donna.
Back to the 13-year-old. This is very interesting to me. Also, it's quite interesting that a lot of the dialogue around this storyline is also quite comedic.
Yes.
Which surprised me.
Yes.
And I don't know if that's just, when Americans like, let's joke about Europe.
They love to joke about Europe. They do.
Is it Josh that's like, they've come a long way since Mussolini?
You should mention that.
I will. Like, should we though?
I think it's safe to say, when you're trying to negotiate with Italy, I probably wouldn't throw Mussolini into the face of the person that you're trying to negotiate with.
I don't think so, no. And then Josh is like, his parents who were in custody FedExed him to Rome, which is in Italy.
Are you kidding me?
No, it's really in Italy.
Oh, God.
Like, that's not your best. Like, that's very badum-bum.
Yeah.
Come on now. Like, we're in dad joke territory here.
Yeah.
So what's interesting to me at this point, and took me a while to get there, is the Italians don't want to send him back to the US because the state in which he committed the crime, Georgia, holds the death penalty, at which point I wrote in the shared doc, surely as a minor, you can't be up for a death penalty sentence. But we find out later in the episode, in Georgia, you can, which is crazy.
The DA has the judgment call about whether or not they wish to seek the death penalty. So it's not an automatic, but that option is available.
Wild. At the end of this meeting, Sam is saying that he's going to meet with Bernice Collette of the OMB, and that he is going to, and I quote, warm her up with, and again I quote, jokes, nicknames, that kind of thing.
My immediate thought is Sam is going to be eaten alive by Bernice Collette, and I would not recommend that he try jokes and nicknames. It feels we're very much setting him up for a fall there. I just
think that when Sam tries to be suave, it doesn't work. And when Sam is just weird and himself, people warm to him naturally.
Agreed.
And the last thing he needs to do is take any advice from Joshua Lyman about how to talk to women.
Please no. But what I've been itching to discuss with you is Jed Bartlet's discussion of color coding.
Yes, shall we? So unfortunately, Charlie has now been kind of pulled into the orbital force of Jed Bartlet complaining about Thanksgiving and Camp David, which is interesting because I was like, oh, you know, he and Jed's daughter have been going out for like a couple of years. Like, would he not be with them at Thanksgiving?
Yes, and also we've not discussed his little sister who he kind of takes care of in a very long time.
Yeah, so like would love to touch base with Charlie's personal life a little bit more.
Yeah, like what are his plans for Thanksgiving?
Now, Toby has arrived in the Oval to have a quick chat about this initiative to provide cell phones to neighborhood watch groups, which I think is super smart. And Jed's like, oh, like that seems like a boring idea. And Toby's like, well, the thing is like these boring ideas that don't sound very like useful, interesting actually is often the stuff that people remember when it comes to voting.
Yeah.
And then Jed's like, it's too small. I could fund this out of my pocket.
It's 10 million.
Leo could fund this out of his pocket.
I love the idea that Leo's just like quite rich.
Yeah. And like,
he's the boy from Boston who did good.
Yeah, exactly. But this meeting that Jed is having with Toby is part of a new scheduling program that Charlie has put together for Jed, where he has like colorized certain things in Jed's diary. And Jed he's resisting this.
He's struggling with the color coding system. He's resistant to change. He feels like someone who's afraid of Excel.
So Leigh, this leads me to the fact that I think we had a very similar conversation where you were like, you need to get Google Calendar.
Yeah.
Because then I'll know what you're doing and we can organize our lives better. And I very much like Jed Bartlet was like, what's wrong with a pen and paper? I've got my paper diary and that's all I need. And I can confirm, having spent the last 12 months using Google Calendar, that it's fucking changed my life. I love color coding. I love looking at my week and seeing all the colored squares. It's changed my life. And so I say to Jed Bartlet, don't fight it.
Don't fight progress.
We close out this scene. Jed's very concerned about the stuffing that he's going to make for Thanksgiving, which does also confirm, Leigh, that he is a performative chef, which we did always think he was, which is that he's like, I make the turkey. He describes the stuffing as being made of cornbread, oysters, water chestnuts, and andouille sausage.
I missed this entirely. That's mental.
Are you joking? That sounds horrible.
That's not what I come to stuffing for. Where are the mushrooms?
Like, also,
where are the mushrooms?
I think I've got confused. So in the UK, we have chestnuts. But a water chestnut is something very different in the UK. Like, a water chestnut is like basically like the edible bulb of a particular type of plant.
Yes.
And it's not a type of nut.
Yes.
Whereas the chestnuts that I'm thinking of that you would have like in a stuffing in the UK are literally nuts. Famously, our friend Amy is like deathly allergic to chestnuts. And every Christmas time I worry for her. So that's crazy. Oysters? You're putting oysters in a turkey?
Oysters in stuffing is mental.
Awful.
So you're taking oysters, you're putting it in bread, and then you're putting that inside a turkey.
Inside a turkey's
ass? Is that
ass?
not nuts? Oh, God, I don't want to think about it.
Andouille sausage, I'm like, a little spicy sausage in there, like that's not terrible. The idea of using a cornbread stuffing mix sounds quite nice. Oysters have no place being involved in like with poultry. Oyster.
Also, like mixing seafood and poultry just feels like a recipe for disaster.
Specifically when you're like cooking it within the bird. Jed has a lot of feeling about stuffing. In fact, he then goes to Leo's office to talk about the stuffing.
Yeah. Just two boys having culinary chats.
Honestly, and they've done this before.
They have, yeah.
Because Toby is kind of like rattled Jed a little bit. So he's pouring his heart out to Leo. But also he's too nervous to talk to the head chef at the White House, the head chef like for the residents, to get his opinion, because he literally shouted at him the other week. I think the quote was, "I thought he did something stupid and inconsiderate last week, but it turns out I was just in a bad mood." Which makes me think that Jed is someone who gets hangry.
Yeah.
And this leads me to the moment in the narrative of this episode where we discover the Butterball hotline.
Yes.
Charlie, get me the number for the Butterball hotline. I lost my mind at this. There was a number you could call to ask for like turkey advice. The Butterball hotline
was the Butterball hotline.
It's still live now.
Oh my God, yeah. New York Times article from 2024. Turkey trouble at Butterball. Operators are still standing by.
That's insane. And like,
wow.
just when I was like away with the whimsy of that, shit gets really real.
Yeah.
Jed gets past some like polling data and he's still excited about the Butterball hotline. But as he's reading the polling data, he's like, what the fuck? And then calls in Bruno.
Yeah.
So we'll see what happens with that. But first of all, we need to watch Sam try and warm up a woman. You got to give it to him.
He doesn't let being absolutely eviscerated throw him off his game, which I respect.
Yeah, that's so true. He goes in strong with by calling her Bernie. And then she's like, "Oh, I don't really go by Bunny. Like, I prefer Bunnies." And then he says, "But how will you know I'm your buddy?" And her response is, "I'm okay living in the dark on that."
It's so incredible.
She proceeds to give him lots of interesting information about this OMB framework, which is actually very fascinating and I enjoy thoroughly. But the news in from Italy is that the Italians basically aren't going to release the Georgian kid until Georgia agrees basically to take the death penalty off the table.
Yes.
In the lobby, we get an answer to what Maggie and Jack want. Is that they've been waiting on a ruling from the Department of the Interior about their land for 15 years.
Yeah, it's kind of dystopian and also really real.
Yeah. And I think the gravity of why they're essentially doing a sit-in is that they're like, today was a day where we were supposed to be like sitting down with them and like actually getting an answer.
Yeah.
And that has just been cancelled last minute. Because basically people want to go on holiday for Thanksgiving. And I would say this is such a valid storyline, but it seems frustrating that it's put into the hands of CJ. Like, so Josh has given her this basically to spin, but he's not given her any of the tools to help. Like, she doesn't hold a position that means she actually has any sway.
Yeah, what is the press secretary doing being put on this?
She hasn't even got the clout to like get them a sit down with like Josh or Leo.
And it's very telling that they send CJ, because it means that basically all they're really concerned about is the media response, not the actual issue at hand.
Which I think is kind of the point Aaron's making.
Yeah.
In general. But we have to move away from this story because Josh is having coffee with an Italian.
I'm thrilled.
I'm so excited for Josh to have a meeting with a man who just exudes natural sex appeal and gravitas.
It's so thrilling to see him being outswaggered in the most effortless way.
Yeah, because Alberto is a man that has gravitas and class.
He is.
From his tiny little golden coffee cup to the way that he just naturally sits in his seat.
You can just see that, like, he's like, yeah, have your latte. I'm a real man. I'm going to have a fucking espresso.
The tiny coffee cup that Josh goes to drink out of, you're like, you just know as soon as that coffee hits his lips, he's like, oh, it's too much for me. I need my like drip coffee. Anyway, we meet Alberto and he's from the Foreign Office. He's not the ambassador, but he's a high-ranking political operative from Italy who's kind of running point on this. They sit down and have a coffee together. Cue this back and forth. Joshua, you're in a restaurant.
Alberto.
And there's this little girl who's really misbehaving. She runs around, she's throwing food. Her father decides to punish her right there and then by cracking a wine bottle over her head, throwing her to the ground and kicking her repeatedly. You sit at the next table. What do you do?
The kid wasn't throwing food.
Is there a crime that girl could commit that would justify what her father did?
See, it's problematic when other people make my argument for me.
Because kind of Alberto doesn't really leave Josh with anywhere to go.
No.
Like he very calmly sends Josh to go and do some work, really.
Which I love.
Yeah, because I think Josh was like, I just kind of want to get this off my plate before Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
And Alberto's like, but you need to understand like the gravity of what you're saying. This 15-year-old kid is going to get sent home to die. Because it's clear, like there's no dispute that he may or may not have committed the murder. He committed the murder. Anyway, I think it's time that we go to Bruno and Jed having a showdown.
Yes.
Now, I'm going to give a disclosure here, which is I really should have listened. But what I did was I kind of stopped listening entirely when Bruno started talking about sailing.
Yeah,
I think that shit is straight as hell and I find it tiresome and boring.
I agree. I couldn't agree more. Yeah. What I will say is, saying the phrase, she's making a certain amount of sense, is, I feel, the strongest endorsement a man can give.
To a woman. Definitely a man such as Bruno.
Yeah.
You know? But basically, why they're stressed out and kind of disagreeing is Bruno had a poll put out to see how people would respond as to like where Jed should spend Thanksgiving. And basically, the kind of feedback was like him going to New Hampshire felt like a little bit of a moral high ground in a way. It felt too connected to like the primaries. And so that's why basically Bruno kind of got Abbey in on convincing Jed to do it at Camp David.
Yeah. A classic My Big Fat Greek Wedding. The man is the head of the family, but the woman is the neck.
For sure.
And can turn the head any way she wants.
Solid quote there, Leigh.
Thank you.
So it feels like we've reached a point with Bruno and Jed's relationship where we've seen Bruno pull this rank with other members of the team. But this is the first time we've seen him like with Jed being like, no, but like if you want me to run your campaign, let me run your campaign.
Yeah.
which is very interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Brief check-in with CJ.
Mm-hmm.
And she kind of asks Leo if he might see Maggie and Jack. And he says that he won't take a meeting with, and I quote, people who stage a sit-in in the lobby.
Mm-hmm.
Which doesn't feel like a great attitude to have.
It's very dismissive. And I do think that's representative of the American government's response to Indigenous people for a lot of US history.
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't make it any easier to stomach. And I don't think that it's given its full weight for how reprehensible of an attitude that is in the way that it's presented here.
Yeah. And I do feel like you see throughout this episode, CJ go from like, oh, this is holding me up, to becoming like very invested in Maggie and Jack's plight.
Agreed.
To some absolute frivolity with the Butterball hotline.
Mm-hmm.
Should we discuss Jed's made-up name, Joe Bethersonton? Bethersonton? Joe
Bethenstonton.
Yeah, Joe Betherstonton. My name's Joe Betherstonton. When the operator's like, your voice sounds awful familiar. And he just says, he just like goes dead behind the eyes and he goes, I do radio commercials for products.
It's so good. And then it's like the most serious thing in the world, like, get me a South Dakota zip code.
Yeah. Because he's like, I'm from Fargo. And then she's like, no, but like, what's your address? And he's like, 142538 something street. It's important that it's street and not avenue. Like, it's like him spinning a yarn like on the hoof is so funny. Would you like to be Bartlett or the operator?
I'll be the operator. I'll give you Bartlett.
Mm-hmm. Stuffing should be cooked inside the turkey, am I correct?
It can also be baked in a casserole dish.
Well, then we'd have to call it something else, wouldn't we?
I suppose.
If I cook it inside the turkey, is there a chance I could kill my guests? I'm not saying that's necessarily a deal breaker. He's just joshing around. It's just Thanksgiving.
I'd also like to just note a small moment for the ongoing use of the word schlepp in this episode, which I really enjoyed.
It gets a lot of airtime. I also would like us to reflect on the fact that when he hangs up to the Butterball hotline, Jed just says to the room at large, that was excellent. And I would like to agree with him that it was excellent. So the plan for Georgia.
Mm-hmm.
So Josh needs to go and talk to a former or current Georgia DA?
Current Georgia DA, who I think has previously run for governor and lost.
There we go. Mm-hmm. We've decided that this is our plan of action because we're worried essentially that the Italians are going to get the Pope involved.
Which is fair. I don't like the idea of Jed having to kind of deal with the Pope because I think he would turn into a fluttering Irish granny at the thought of a call with the Pope.
Has he called the Pope before on this show?
In the death penalty episode.
Yes.
When he was deciding whether he was going to pardon the man on death row.
Yes. So he has chatted with the Pope before.
Yeah. Which was a big day for him. But he was just very upset that day.
Yeah.
So I don't know that he fully kind of was able to enjoy it.
So the kind of conclusion is that the Georgia DA is going to be at an airport waiting for a transfer at Atlanta, which is the airport that Josh has been asking Donna not to put him in a transfer for.
Which I totally understand. Having a connection in Atlanta is a nightmare. I once got stuck there overnight and it was horrendous.
But as soon as he decides that he needs to talk to this Georgia DA, after all of the work she's done all day, he turns around and he's like, forget it all. I actually need to have the transfer in Atlanta. Imagine, Leigh.
Imagine.
The frustration. And then he's like, can you call my mum and tell her I'll be late for dinner?
This is not a phrase I enjoy using or often use, but it would boil my piss, Fiona.
Truly. And Donna correctly responds with, Josh, you call your mother. And I vehemently support her on that.
Yeah.
Can you call my mum? She spent all day trying to book you a flight and then you've turned around and be like, oh, but actually I don't want those flights that you've spent all day trying to work on. I want this flight. Also, can you call my mum? Get a grip. Now, it is time to discuss Toby heading off to Thanksgiving.
Oh my God, I'm so excited. The idea of it.
So we meet Toby like outside, like on his way out of the West Wing, and Bruno is also there. And they just check in, Toby and Bruno, on the OMB's new framework, because essentially Toby's like, I'm going to give you a heads up that we're going to have 4 million new people being classed as living in poverty. And I think he's expecting Bruno to be like, what the fuck? Like, this is terrible. This is going to be so hard. And again, this is just another feather in the cap for me, for Bruno, making him just the king of spin, because he's like, well, that's great, because it meant that the poverty formula was wrong for like multiple administrations before Bartlet's. So actually the other guys did nothing about it, and Bartlet's the one that's
taken the hit, taken one for the team.
Yeah.
But then Toby talks about the fact that he has nieces and nephews to get to at his Thanksgiving plans. I'm beside, it's very Mr. Knightley and Emma, just being like so grumpy in his day to day, but then like throwing a small boy up in the air.
Yeah. It's also giving the character that Colin Firth plays in Love Actually.
Oh, yes.
Where he like arrives with all of the bags and they're like, Uncle Jamie. And then he's like, I'm sorry, I have somewhere to be. I hate you, Uncle Jamie. Yeah. I would love to see Toby with his family.
I would love to see that, yeah.
I actually think he would be a super fun uncle. He would be a funkle.
I wonder, does he have like a very smug younger brother with like a wife and kids?
See, I think he has a sister that he's very close with, and she has a husband that Toby's like, this guy's just fucking waste of space.
Oh my God, yes. No,
and like
you're correct.
He, like,
you're
suffers
correct.
through his brother-in-law, and like his brother-in-law's like, hey, Tobes, how's things in the big DC? And Toby's like, don't say that. Don't talk. No, we're not close.
Yeah.
Yeah. And his sister's like, thank God you're here. It's very, actually, do you know what it is? It's quite, not to reference Love Actually again, but it's kind of Emma Thompson, Hugh Grant, brother and sister. And then like, you know, Alan Rickman kind of being the curmudgeonly husband that has an affair.
What did my brother do today? He stood up and fought for his country. What did I do today? I made a papier-mâché lobster head.
The kind of amazing king of spin moment Bruno has is sort of immediately undercut by the fact that he then starts going on about P.T. Barnum and white salmon.
The sailing of it all. I
just blocked it out. I was like, P.T. Barnum of The Greatest Showman fame. Hugh Jackman. But I think making him speak nonsense actually makes him more of the gang.
Agreed.
It was a very Sam Seaborn moment.
What we know is that I think there's some level of autism going through every single character in the West Wing because they all have their specialist subjects.
Yes. To Atlanta, Georgia, to the airport, to Josh once again having a meeting with someone in an airport.
In an airport bar, specifically.
And once again, ordering a ginger ale.
Yes. Which I do find fun because that is sometimes my kind of go-to I'm not drinking tonight drink.
It's also a fantastic flight-based drink.
Yes. It's great for kind of settling a stomach on a flight.
Yeah. So, great little meeting at the airport bar for Josh and this DA. And Josh is kind of like, look, we know you want to run as governor again. And we know that you're worried that if you don't keep the death penalty on the table, you're worried that everyone's going to view you as being soft.
Yeah.
But
which was the greatest fear for Democrats in the 90s, was being seen as being soft on crime.
But what Josh is like, wink, wink, nudge, nudging is like, we'll say some nice things about your campaign. Kind of like, we'll give you a bit of clout, right? If you take this off the table. Yeah. So well done, Josh.
And also just like give you more media highlights kind of thing. Just to confirm, Stockard Channing did in fact break her ankle in real life in 2001 in a hiking accident. It had to be written into the West Wing.
Oh my God, and it was in a hiking accident. I love that. Because I felt like it had to be real because the choice for Abbey to have a broken leg is insane. Abbey Bartlet gets wheeled in to the room by like a presidential aide.
Obsessed.
And then she says, sometimes I don't want to go 15 rounds on Bess Truman and what constitutes a farm.
I'm obsessed. Absolutely going for the lowest hanging fruit there.
And Jed gets to have his moment where he's like, I'm really grumpy because I wanted to go home for Thanksgiving and you schemed with Bruno behind my back and I don't like it. And then he's like, well, now we're not even going to Camp David. We're going to stay here at the residence and I'm going to change everyone in my family's plans 24 hours before Thanksgiving.
Which also, by the way, changes the plans of the entire presidential staff.
Exactly. And that was so interesting. And I am happy that Abbey was like, you do realize that when we stay here, loads of people have to come to work who would have otherwise had Thanksgiving off. And Jed's just like, I don't care. I'm right and I'm going to make stuffing.
Yeah.
And we close out this episode actually in a very like kind of thought-provoking way.
Yes.
And I'm really glad actually that we finish with Maggie and Jack.
Agreed.
It feels right that they kind of get the last word in this episode. So we're still in the lobby and CJ goes back to talk to them because security are going to basically ask them to leave and kind of forcibly remove them. And CJ's like, I want you to know that what has happened is unacceptable and that yours isn't the only case that's unacceptable. So like, let's go to my office and let's get a meeting in the diary. I know that's not an answer now, but like, let's make some noise about this. And Maggie accepts it. And then CJ says, how do you keep fighting these smaller injustices when they're all from the mother of all injustices?
And Maggie just replies by saying, what's the alternative?
And that's the end of the episode.
Which is, I think, a poignant and important point to end on for a Thanksgiving episode.
Yeah. Leigh, shall we do the quick fires?
Yes, please.
Best fashion.
Abby's cast.
Yeah, dead. Yeah, unbelievable. But like, yeah, in fact, it should have a supporting credit.
It should. It should
Guest starring.
Yeah. Guest starring. Abby's broken ankle.
Yeah. I would say there needs to be an honourable mention to Toby and Bruno's exterior coats in, a November DC. What could a British or Irish politician never get away with?
Talking to the staff for a full day about a meal they're going to cook.
Yeah, it's...
Dare I say even just like cooking for a large group of people?
Yeah,
there are very few former prime ministers that I would kind of trust to be able to even use an oven.
I think a very specific ick for me is performative cooking from straight men.
Yeah.
Now, I'm very lucky that my partner is an amazing cook. He is a really good cook. Now, when he's like, I'm making dinner, there is no fanfare. It's not like, and I've made this particular roux and I'm just sprinkling some, and I've made a reduction. He's just like, I'm making fish for dinner. And it will, when it comes out, it will be a gorgeous, beautiful plate. But it's not performative. It's not GQ Eats.
It's not GQ Eats.
Which is a reference that Leigh and I will get, which is a particular cookbook which Leigh and I take umbrage with, just for
which is owned exclusively by performative male cooks.
Yes.
And that's all we will say about that.
So yeah, I just think, I hate that. Queerest moment that never intended to be queer.
Sam Seaborn kind of hovering outside of Toby's office quite a few times during this episode. It was quite queer for me.
Yeah.
I don't know why hovering is queer, but it does feel that it is.
Yes. I think for me, and mine's like quite a big punt, so like do go with me on this one. I feel like
I'm just reading in real time what you've written.
Like Bruno talking about sailing, like the long kind of sailing metaphor he had, like it was really giving like young Jay Gatsby.
It's very Jay Gatsby.
Being like, and that's when like I was on the boat, like, and I had this like older male guy and I was his protege. And like, you know, I'm just like, Bruno, it's okay if you like fucked a guy when you were 21.
Yeah.
You know?
I think he probably did.
Yeah. I think he was kind of into it. I think he, you know, he was out sailing and there were a few older guys and they really liked Bruno and Bruno was kind of down for sex, you know?
You don't have to be born with a vagina to screw your way to the top. Do you know what I mean?
Exactly. What was your best writerly moment?
I don't know, sir. When I came in here back in the late 50s, there was a purpose to it, but then one thing led to another and I blacked out.
Yeah, so good. I think mine has to be, but how will you know I'm your buddy? I'm okay
living in the dark on that.
It's such a gentle put down.
Yeah, it's incredible.
Man, I feel like a man.
It's taken on an international flavor, much like myself.
Yeah, it's very. I think just Jed Bartlet shouting across the room, Charlie, get me the number for the Butterball hotline.
Yes.
And then again, an honourable mention to everything Josh did to Donna about booking those flights.
Yeah. But you're just so good at logistics.
And that's what I hate about it. But you're so good at that, Donna. You know what? Booking flights is part of her job description.
For advanced planning for official business, not for your
Yeah.
personal holiday plans.
Yeah, and you know what? Like a month previously, if you'd said, I'm going to my mother's in Florida,
Then that would be appropriate.
that would be appropriate. The day before?
No,
Thank you. The moment that made you proudest to be an American?
I think CJ's final scene and also the way that Maggie delivers the final line. But
Yes.
I enjoyed the way in which CJ was kind of present with Maggie in that final scene.
And at the start of the episode, it felt like it was like CJ's like fun storyline. But actually, CJ was just the character that was taking us to those scenes where we were hearing those Maggie and Jack's story.
Yeah.
Shall we learn something, Leigh?
Yes. Also, another request from David on Patreon for this particular study session, which he suggested specifically for this episode, which is who even is Deb Haaland, who we have briefly mentioned before. She was the first ever Indigenous person to be Secretary of the Interior, which we can loosely equate to Home Secretary in the UK.
Okay.
But it has a very different kind of resonance in the United States, which we'll get into. But first of all, who even is Deb Haaland? She is a member of the Pueblo of Laguna people, and she is a 35th generation New Mexican. She was asked on The Daily Show in 2024 how she could possibly know that. And she said, so my ancestors from Chaco Canyon, it's now Chaco Cultural National Historical Park, migrated from that area and from other areas to Bears Ears, Mesa Verde, all over the Southwest to what is now New Mexico in like 1280. So one time I just for the heck of it took out my calculator and searched how many years in a generation and I calculated it out and it came to 35. So it's fair to say she has deep roots in New Mexico.
Yeah.
Her dad was a 30-year combat Marine and was awarded the Silver Star for saving lives in Vietnam. Her mother is a Navy veteran and served as a federal employee for 25 years in the Bureau of Indian Affairs, which I mentioned earlier in the episode comes under the umbrella of the Department of the Interior.
Okay.
Now, just for some context, Native people did not get the right to vote in the United States until 1924 with the passage of the Indian Citizenship Act.
Okay.
And those living in reservations in New Mexico weren't allowed to vote until 1948.
Oh, whoa. Okay.
And even after that, there was some of the kind of voter suppression techniques that existed in the Jim Crow South were also exerted on Native Americans. You know, things like literary tests, poll taxes. And Deb Haaland, when she was coming up in politics, referenced a lot the story of Miguel Trujillo, who was a Marine and member of the Isleta Pueblo, who returned home from the Second World War and sued for his right to vote, which ultimately led to Native people living on reservations getting the right to vote in New Mexico in 1948, or actually being able to use their right to vote, I should say.
Wow.
And that's a story that Deb Haaland references a lot. But she hasn't always been involved in politics. She was in her 20s and early 30s, a single mother relying on food stamps, very much living paycheck to paycheck. She enrolled in university at 28 years old and got her bachelor's degree, and later went to the University of New Mexico Law School From there, she kind of got involved with tribal administration at San Felipe Pueblo and became a member of the Laguna Development Corporation Board of Directors, where she was able to kind of advocate for small businesses while protecting natural resources. She ran unsuccessfully for New Mexico Lieutenant Governor in 2014 and then became the first Native American woman elected to lead a state party subsequently. But in 2018, she became one of two first Native American women elected to Congress. Two were elected in the same cycle. Clara Apodaca, who's a former First Lady of New Mexico, said of Deb Haaland's 2018 race for Congress, they didn't think she could win because she's so quiet. She never seems to fight, but she always wins, which I love as a quote.
Yeah.
In her primary, she defeated 5 other Democrats, running a really unapologetically progressive campaign. And she was one of kind of the wave of many, many women who ran for Congress in that first midterm in Trump's first term that really became a progressive wave in Congress. So that was the same year that like AOC was elected and much of the kind of AOC squad. She also, interestingly for this episode, that these two kind of subjects are coming together, as much as she positions herself with her Native American identity, she also identifies strongly as working class, noting that 1 in 4 Native Americans in America live below the poverty line. 1 in 4.
Yeah, that's a mad statistic.
The unemployment rates within the Native American community are really high. On some reservations, it's higher than 50%. And when she was elected to Congress, Deb Haaland was one of the poorest members of Congress because she didn't own a home. She had no savings or investments of any kind. And she was still paying her own student loans. Nancy Pelosi praised her immense empathy and invaluable experience. And also the fact that she really quickly became chair of the subcommittee on national parks, forests and public lands, which is really rare to become a chair of any committee in your first term in Congress. And she co-sponsored more bills than any other freshman in Congress, and had one of the most liberal voting records. She's an environmentalist. She really prioritized clean energy jobs and money for small businesses and restaurants during the pandemic because, of course, she was elected into the pandemic almost. She's also really known for working across the aisle. She has more bipartisan co-sponsored bills than all House freshmen in 2019, including 7 bills that were signed into law by Donald Trump in his first term. Tim Cole, who's a Republican from Oklahoma and a member of the Chickasaw Nation, said that he has next to nothing in common politically with Deb Haaland. He describes the new Green New Deal as socialism masking as environmentalism, which is the most American thing I've ever heard.
Yeah.
But he also says Deb Haaland reminds him of his mother as a pioneering Indigenous politician. He said Deb's a force of nature, a very excellent legislator, innovative, active, instinctively bipartisan, although certainly very progressive. One of the, I think, most important pieces of legislation that she worked on and got passed in 2019 was the Not Invisible Act, which created a commission to advise the Interior and Justice Departments on the failure to solve missing persons and murder cases in Native communities.
Oh, wow.
Saying that Native women have been trafficked since colonization, so for 500 years. The rates of missing women among the Indigenous communities are really, really scarily high. Now, she's 2 years into her first term. She's 2 years into being a congresswoman when Joe Biden gets elected. And there's a lot of names being thrown around for who he's going to put as Secretary of the Interior, including the New Mexico Senators Martin Heinrich and Tom Udall, who are apparently leading candidates for the job, both of whom were kind of long-term Biden guys.
Yeah.
Tom Udall specifically is the son of a really famous Interior Secretary, Stuart L. Udall, who actually has one of the buildings in the department named after him.
Wow, that's crazy.
And he was nominated by JFK. Now, Deb Haaland had endorsed Elizabeth Warren during the Democratic primary, so she was not part of the kind of Biden orbit at all. And she probably wouldn't have ever been considered for Secretary of the Interior. But did you watch the documentary Sugarcane that came out last year? It was on Disney Plus, and it was about the Native American boarding schools in Canada.
No, I didn't, but I will now.
Please do. And listeners, please do watch. It's going to talk about a lot of the history that we're going to get into, but in Canada, where very similar things were happening. But the filmmaker and activist who made Sugarcane, Julian Brave Noisecat, in the summer of 2020, who actually made the documentary Sugarcane, he was asked by like a left-wing think tank to put together a kind of list of potential progressive cabinet nominees for Biden. His kind of like dream list. And Noisecat is quoted as saying this was a pie in the sky list. He'd become aware of Deb Haaland through her congressional campaign and her support of the Green New Deal. And he said, I put Deb's name on for Interior, and we joked it was like choosing the Lorax to be EPA administrator. But to his surprise, Deb for Interior, quote unquote, took off. And then when Biden won, environmental groups, progressive PACs, Native American nonprofits, all mounted social media campaigns and organized petitions to try and push her nomination. An article did come out in The Hill saying that Udall had been chosen for the job, but it was quickly taken down, and Noisecat then realized that Deb Haaland might still be in with a chance and basically published an open letter asking the senator to remove himself from consideration for the nomination, saying it would not be right for two Udalls to lead the Department of the Interior, the agency tasked with managing the nation's public land, national resources, and trust responsibility to tribes before a single Native American. A week later, Biden selected Deb Haaland.
Wow.
I find this so beautiful. The night before her confirmation hearing, work by an Apache and Chichimeca artist, Mare Young, was projected onto the main entrance of the Udall building with the words, "Our ancestors' dreams come true."
Wow.
So, Deb Haaland makes history when she becomes the first Native American to serve as a cabinet secretary, full stop. Now, the Department of the Interior, which we were discussing in this episode. 15 years before Deb Haaland became Interior Secretary, a federal judge appointed by Ronald Reagan called the Department of the Interior the morally and culturally oblivious hand-me-down of a disgracefully racist and imperialist government that should have been buried a century ago. And he denounced the last pathetic outpost of the indifference and Anglocentrism that we thought we had left behind.
Wow.
A former Secretary of the Interior claimed that the goal of the Interior Department was to, quote, civilize or exterminate.
Yikes.
Deb Haaland has responded to that by saying, I'm a living testament to the failure of that horrific ideology. So, as Secretary of the Interior, she led 70,000 federal employees and presided over the allocation of like unprecedented money to go to various tribes for everything from water to school improvements to public safety on reservations. But basically, the U.S. Department of the Interior, one of its main tasks is managing the nation-to-nation relationship between the United States and tribal nations. When she was asked, what even is the Department of the Interior, Deb Haaland responded, at the Department of the Interior, we manage millions and millions of acres of all of our public lands under the National Park Service, of wildlife refuges, the Bureau of Land Management. We protect and preserve our nation's cultural heritage, and we uphold the trust and treaty obligations of our country's 574 federally recognized Indian tribes. But there is no escaping the fact that the Department of the Interior was almost created to kind of manage and control Native people. Patty Limerick, a Western historian at the University of Colorado at Boulder, said you could almost call it the Department of Intense Irony and still keep the same initials. There's no question that the Department of the Interior comes into being to manage, direct, and control Indian people. This is proof that we're not stuck with a historical legacy. This is proof we have the power to say, let's change this. Speaking to Deb Haaland becoming Secretary of the Interior. According to the Center for American Progress, in her time as Secretary of the Interior, Deb Haaland accomplished more for tribal nations and Indigenous communities than any of her predecessors. She created the Derogatory Geographic Names Task Force to remove offensive language from names of public lands, something which had been done in the 1960s and 70s for derogatory terms related to Black and Japanese Americans in kind of place names. But in 2 decades, the board had received 261 proposals to replace geographic features that had derogatory words about Native Americans in the place names. And there is one particular word that she has basically named as derogatory and is now being removed from all place names on public lands.
Wow.
Which is incredible.
Yeah.
She also launched the first US government investigation into the federal Indian boarding schools.
Yes.
When she launched that in the summer of 2021, there wasn't even a comprehensive list of all of the boarding schools that had existed, let alone like a full roster of student names of those who'd attended. The first Indian boarding school in Carlisle was founded by Richard Henry Pratt, an Army officer, and he described the remit of the Indian boarding schools as to kill the Indian in him and save the man.
Wow.
They were in operation from 1819 to 1969, and the US government directly managed and funded Indian boarding schools in nearly 40 states.
Wow. That's a lot of states, isn't it?
By 1926, more than 80% of school-age Indian children had been removed from their families. So if we want to talk about a family separation policy, the Trump administration is not the first time that the US government sponsored a family separation policy. It was happening for generations in the Native American communities.
Yeah.
And they were just horrific. There's no getting around it. From the very beginning, the founding of these Native American boarding schools, there were reports of disease, physical abuse, sexual abuse, financial exploitation, because the students were forced to work for local farmers and businesses. At least 53 of the schools have burial sites. At least almost 1,000 Indigenous children died at these schools.
Oh my God.
And it's just heartbreaking when you think of these children being taken away and never being returned to their families.
Yeah.
I do also feel the need to say, as somebody who is Irish and was raised Catholic, the Catholic Church operated more than 100 of these boarding schools. Others were run by the Society of Friends, the Presbyterian Church, the United Methodist Church, the Unitarian Church, and the Episcopal Church. And I personally feel sick at the thought that Irish priests were in part running these places, especially when some of the remit of what was being done in these boarding schools had been done historically to the Irish people. I don't know how, as an Irish person, you would stomach that. But obviously the Catholic Church has been responsible for a lot. I personally would love to see any of those churches apologize to the Native American community for their involvement in this scheme. Deb Haaland, as a member of the Pueblo Laguna, says that her grandparents, her great-grandfather and her mother were all sent away to these boarding schools. Her grandmother, Helen, was 8 years old when a priest from Mission San Jose de Laguna gathered all of the children from her village and brought them 50 miles away to Albuquerque, and then put them on a train to Santa Fe, more than 100 miles away. And her grandmother, Helen, spent 5 years away from her family at this boarding school. A family member was only allowed to visit her twice in those 5 years. Her dad, who rode for 3 days each way to go and visit her, which is just, like, think about 2 visits from your dad between the age of 8 and 13. Deb Haaland grew up hearing about this not only from her grandmother, but then her mother was sent there as well. It's like, you can't even imagine, as the grandmother, you know exactly what your daughter is going to, but you don't have any power to stop it.
Yeah.
You know, and there was forcible haircutting. Their Native American names were taken away from them, and sometimes they were just given numbers, and they were punished if they spoke their own native languages. Deb Haaland is quoted as saying, "For much of this country, boarding schools are places where affluent families send their children for exclusive education. For Indigenous people, they served as places of trauma and terror for more than 100 years. It failed to annihilate our languages, our traditions, our life ways. It failed to destroy us because we persevered." So one of the things that Deb Haaland did as Secretary for the Interior was she set up the Road to Healing listening sessions, where she basically toured the country and invited the survivors of these boarding schools to come and give testimony for an oral history project, so that what happened could be recorded and we don't forget what happened. Because the elders of these communities, of course, we're losing them with each day that passes. So in these sessions, nobody's remarks were submitted in advance. No one was ever interrupted, and there were no time limits for how long you could speak. One of the sessions took 8 hours, and Deb Haaland sat in silence and listened till everyone who wanted to speak had spoken. There was a court reporter present to make an official transcript of all the testimonies. There were also trauma specialists and licensed therapists on hand, along with any additional emotional or spiritual support the local tribe wanted, including kind of traditional singers and dancers for prayer, smudging, and massage. In the listening session in Bozeman, Deb Haaland opened with remarks saying, "I will listen with you, I will grieve with you, I will weep, I will feel your pain as we mourn what we have lost. Please know that we still have so much to gain. The healing that can help our communities will not be done overnight, but it will be done. This is one step among many we will take to strengthen and rebuild the bonds of Native American communities that the federal Indian boarding schools set out to break." It really reminded me actually of reading about the Magdalene laundries and the mother and baby homes in Ireland. I think a lot of this, and it's no surprise, many of them were also run by the Catholic Church, but things like, washing children's mouths out with soap for speaking in their native language, and, food being withheld as punishment. Deb Haaland herself is not fluent in her nation's native language, Karez, because family members, after their experiences at the schools, were reluctant to teach it to their children. Deb Haaland's ability to kind of sit in silence and listen and allow others to speak has been noted among several Native American nations as a real sign of exhibiting tribal leadership, and how important that silent listening and spiritual quiet is really important to tribal leadership. And ultimately, this led to Joe Biden giving an official apology for the assimilation policies of the United States, which no US president had ever done before. Deb Haaland said, "As I stood next to the president, I felt the power of our ancestors who persevered through unthinkable odds so that we could all be there that day." Obviously, nobody with such a big job as Interior Secretary can do that job without facing criticism from some corners. She joked that every day half the country was mad at her. And obviously, Native peoples are not a monolith. Different Native people have different views on different issues. But I do think what she managed to do in her nearly 4 years as Interior Secretary was pretty incredible. And she is now running, which I think is a race we should keep an eye out for. She's now running to be governor of New Mexico.
Really interesting. I was going to ask what we think or what people think her political career is going to be moving on from here. That's so interesting.
I think she's a really interesting political voice, especially because she's not somebody who comes from privilege. And ultimately, she managed to pull off a kind of once in a generation investment in Native communities, which I think will have a long lasting impact regardless of who might be in office now.
Yeah, exactly. Such an interesting study session. And like I say, about a part of US history and current US politics that I know nothing of. And what an amazing individual to have campaigning for and giving voice to these issues.
And I think it's all of our responsibility, whether we're kind of American or not, to familiarize ourselves with this history, because I think it's really important. And I think it's not spoken about enough. I was obviously educated for junior high and high school in the States, and I was never taught about the boarding schools, even at, a really great public school, and kind of being in, honors classes and things like that. It wasn't something that was covered. And I find that baffling.
Hey, maybe in time the education system will start to reflect the actual histories of the countries that we've lived and been educated in.
But I would really highly recommend the documentary Sugarcane. As I say, it is about Canada, but a lot of it is very similar to what happened in the United States. And I might also pop some other resources for people to look at in the episode description for this week.
Amazing. Thanks, Leigh.
Thank you for another gorgeous week chatting with the West Wing.
I know, and now we've hit Thanksgiving. It feels like we're on the road to Christmas and a Christmas episode.
Most wonderful time of the year.
And what Christmas darkness will we receive this year? Because we know that Aaron loves to get heavy at Christmas time.
He does. We're Queer Gals Watch, wherever you get your socials. We're queergalswatch@gmail.com. If you want to pop us an email, pop us a note, give us your thoughts, give us your feelings. And please do check out our Patreon if you feel so inclined, because every little helps with us being able to continue to pay our truly patient and kind editor, Misha.
Yes, thank you, Misha, for all that you do. We couldn't do this without you.
Literally couldn't do it without you.
Leigh, I will see you next week for more fun and frolicking in the West Wing.
Yeah.
Bye-bye now.
Bye-bye.